Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. Tonight's episode brought to you by our loyal patrons. Feel free to join their ranks at patreon.com/SWGM Podcast. We are on social media, Facebook and Twitter at SWGM Podcast. Like, subscribe, and share the show from the YouTube channel, youtube.com/SWGM Podcast. And certainly, last but not least, pull it down on, God damn it, I almost nailed it. I did turn off the live stream chat or the volume. Damn it.
You messed your English up.
And download the podcast from iTunes, itunes.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. Also available on most RSS subscription feeds. If you're watching the show live in the YouTube channel and the live stream, feel free to participate in the chat. We do bring that into the show. Tonight's episode, how to or how not to run a modern military adventure in Savage Worlds, aka GINO KNOW. Oh God, I'm a clever little bastard. And here to discuss it, Scott the Savage. You
are on a roll tonight.
And here to discuss it, Scott W, the Savage Cheerleader. Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
Hello.
Dave, the Rules Maven Scott.
Great pod.
And Chris, the Savage Mommy.
Oh, you motherfucker.
So we're talking about how to run an actual modern military campaign in Savage Worlds. How far do you take it to verisimilitude? Please don't, because all weapons do 2d6.
Pick that one player who wants to control the table and make them be in charge. That works really well.
Make him an officer. That's pretty much that's a verisimilitude for you. And then find your seasoned older dude who actually knows what the fuck is happening in the rules and can listen and follow shit. Yeah, make him your NCO.
So let's talk about some of the situations you would run this in, and this might even apply. Especially, we're going to be talking about firearms, obviously. So this may even apply in part to firearms in a modern adventure if you're running a cop or a procedural.
Jared, is this a trigger warning?
You idiot.
Oh, wow.
So is that the result of shaving your facial hair? Bad dad jokes?
Oh man.
Yes.
Is that what happened? I noticed the two people cracking the really horrible jokes are clean shaven and neatly trimmed.
Yes.
What the fuck?
Damn. Put your hair in a man bun, dude.
No. Not unless I get cinnamon or something. I don't know.
Wait. What?
No man buns.
Okay. Oh, cinnamon buns. Okay. Wow. Yes. I'm really slow tonight. I don't get it.
All right.
God.
So anyway,
let's do this.
Something about running military games.
Holy shit! I feel like Will Ferrell's Trebek on Jeopardy, going, "And the show has reached a new low."
Well, you started this, so
Shuck it, Trebek.
All right.
And the way this podcast has been run thus far this evening tells you exactly how well geeks can do in a modern military game.
I just want to point out we've done pretty well for a while now, but once we hit the wall, we hit it going full speed.
Oh man!
How much damage is that?
All of it.
Yeah, I think it's
all
1d6
per 10 feet
every inch of movement.
For 10 miles an hour.
Yeah. So what? 10d6.
There you go.
All right, so running a modern military campaign. I know someone already in the chat joked and said don't. That's kind of my initial advice. If you have veterans at your table or you have active duty military at your table, fucking be respectful and listen to them. I'm not saying kiss the military's ass, but if you've never served, you're not part of that 1% who understands some of our inside jokes, our dark humor, what we go through, right? So it's kind of complicated and we act a little weird some days, but you should probably I would play on them for, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking about. How does this work and how does this not work? If you want a little more of, it's not so much verisimilitude, because verisimilitude you're never going to achieve in a role-playing game. You just can't. Not with the dice, how they are and how shit operates. From the mechanic side, I think from the role-playing side, verisimilitude is very simple to do. But you're going to have people who are willing to do it. And that's where some of it comes in, because everyone thinks, oh, there's this linear rank structure. And for the most part, you're correct until you're talking about certain certain special operations units, certain like incredibly like special projects teams who go out, because in some of these units, your person in charge, your ops chief, right, isn't always going to be the senior most person. You might have an E5 who is your ops chief, who is running that op and who everyone answers to. But like, so me, I serve active duty Navy. I'm a senior chief. So that's an E8, right? Max pay grade for enlisted is an E9, and an E5 is down here to us, right? In the Navy, when you hit E7, which is a Navy chief, shit changes in your life and people kind of tremble in fear at the fucking anchors, because Navy chiefs have a very wild story reputation. But I've been on an op where my ops chief was an E5, but I don't kiss the kid's ass. I'm like, okay, yeah, petty officer. Okay, petty officer. No, I'm not talking to someone who is, you know, I don't like saying beneath me in rank because it's not true, but just who is lower in pay grade than me. That's not how we talk, especially if you're in a tight knit unit. And so you need to have that understanding. But ultimately, they have control of what's going on for a reason, because they have the expertise, they have the time in the teams. They just have their shit together. And you might be the FNG regardless of what your pay grade is, and you might be getting used to how ops are ran, and you're getting qualified, because everyone has to qualify when you go out and shit. And so I don't know. What do you want to talk about from there?
So let's talk about some of the common tropes that we see, right? So, and this is probably a horrible example, but it's reminiscent for me of the trope. Take the Aliens, the second Alien movie, the sequel to the first, where the lieutenant is basically a never seen combat, but he's in charge of their operation. And when fire actually starts happening, he vapor locks and can't make a decision. How accurate is, I mean,
that happens. I've seen an operator who was relieved from direct action missions because, it's not like when you go through, selection, right? ANS for the shorthand. It's not like you're really being fucking murdered at, right? That doesn't happen until you get in a direct action situation, and no human being knows how you're going to respond when bullets start flying at you, or you get IDF, right, which is incoming direct fire, like mortars and shit like that. So you never know how you're going to respond. But there's an operator who shit started popping off, and he went behind the wheel well of a vehicle and sat there and never returned a single shot. So he wasn't removed from the team element, but they knew they had a problem, and so they used him in another capacity, because he obviously can make it through all the screening process, and that's important, because now you're looking at 1% of the population can serve in the military, and now you're talking about even less of a 1% can make it through special forces selection to get to that level. And then on top of that, this wasn't a generic vanilla special operations element. This is a no shit tier 1 element. And it's just now you're looking at incredibly rare human beings. So yeah, it's accurate. It can happen. Now, it's not going to be fun for your full military campaign, because you don't want this. I mean, obviously, you're not going to have someone ducking out constantly, because that's just dumb. That's dumb.
So, I mean, I guess the other question becomes, well, let's talk firearms. That's the easiest conversation really to have as far as a kickoff, right? So most of the Savage Worlds damage and ranges, as we've said before, are pretty much identical. Just a different gun with a different firearm with a different name for the most part. Trappings. Full auto. What options should you be bringing into a game if you're going to be running a modern military game when it comes to firearms? You're talking about unlimited ammo. I mean, I know it's going to depend on the type of game you want to run. If you want to run an action movie, military adventure, then yeah, who gives a shit, right? Just endless ammo, full auto, go ahead, go sick. But if you're trying to run something semi-realistic,
so if you want to do that, I would look at you can reach out to folks, or you can sort of there are enough web pages now in 2019 of you can look at what an operator's kit is, and you got to note that not every kit is the same. Depending on the kind of mission you're going to go on is how you're going to load out your kit, right? So by kit, I mean like you got your plate carrier, and you're going to have your placard, right? Your placard is where you normally see the mag stacks. And so you might not carry too many mags, but if you want to go like semi-realistic and have just like, we're going to have some shits and giggles, we're going to have ammo count in some way, I would do like 6 mags, right, for my AR, and maybe 3 mags for a pistol, because your sidearm is really, honestly, truth be told, your sidearm is really not there except in an emergency. And normally we tell everyone your sidearm is there to make sure 1 round goes through your face right before you end up on fucking YouTube. I mean, it's a true statement. And you don't want that. The worst thing you want to have happen to you is be captured by those pieces of shit who are going to cut your head off for a political statement. Right. So that's kind of your initial stack. And you got to look at grenade loadout, what kind of grenades you have. And just like with the damage, you guys heard me say this before. What kind of caliber do I want to be shot with? None of them. Not a fucking one of them. When we're training, we don't use paintballs. They have like smart vests that some folks use, Sensa vests and shit. But like I've only trained with what we call simunition. So simunition is you take your ARs, you take your pistols, and they're bored down to basically a 22 long rifle. And it fires a 22 cartridge, but instead of a bullet coming out, it's essentially hardened wax. And so you are hitting, your impact is as if you're being shot by a 22, but there's no penetration. And you have to wear a face mask and whatnot. Well, not always, but it just depends on the training environment. And so that gets you used to being kind of shot and hit and kind of what the stings feel like, but shit hurts. I mean, it will paralyze you with your first few times when you realize what's happening, especially depending on where you get hit. So yeah, I don't know. I would also look at like how grenades work. Like if you were to ask someone, how do you throw a flashbang, right? How does a flashbang work? Most people don't honestly know how a flashbang works because they've never seen a flashbang. Flashbang doesn't have 1 pin. I'll tell you that. That's the secret. And so if you don't use a flashbang properly, right, you're not going to get shit. You just have a heavy piece of canister that you're tossing into an empty room or a full room or whatever. And then also when you get the flashbang and you activate it properly, right, you have to get rid of it because you don't have long. And so there are times when it's like, oh shit, abort, and you throw that shit out in the street behind you and you're flashbanging comrades, and oh yeah, crazy shit happens in war. So there's weird shit. I mean, there's a ton of stories that go down, but that's what I would look at. I would look at like an average kit loadout for an operator. Especially if you're doing like an army campaign, even the SEALs, you can kind of guesstimate what's going on. Everyone uses their own gear. Even each operator can actually reach out and look for new crazy shit to bring in because they have a pretend budget for the most part. And so if there's something that works, they'll just buy it. They don't have to requisition it and any of that nonsense like the regular military does. It's like, hey, this shit works. We're going to bring it in. So you look at that and just understand, like, what does a Delta weapons sergeant carry? What does a Delta medic carry? What does like a corpsman attached to MARSOC carry, right? What does a PJ do? PJs are U.S. Air Force Special Operations pararescuemen, right? Ultra badasses, and their whole job is they are elite medics of the community. So you start understanding how those work, and that not everything. If you go out with Delta, it doesn't mean you're all Army. Right. You go out with Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, maybe not so much Marines. That's a whole different thing. You look up how MARSOC gets maltreated and lambasted by SOCOM in general, but it's also the Marines' fault. But understand those dynamics and then bring that to bear in your kit loadout, your realism. I wouldn't fret over weapons because you're not going to be able to account for everything. Like if I have a character who's a rifleman and I'm using a 9-inch barrel, 300 blackout suppressed. Okay, well, I know that if I use a heavy grain round, now I'm going ultra subsonic. And so now I'm going to go super suppressed, right? But what dynamics does that really change the game? No one gives a shit, right? Just keep it simple is what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter. Just look at the caliber, find something that matches in Savage Worlds, and just deal with it, honestly. If you want to add some like a +1 or a +2, maybe to different types of ammo, like I have a 8-inch, right, SOCOM 458 that I have for my personal weapon. So a SOCOM 458 is a Desert Eagle 50 cal cartridge, bottleneck down to a .45 caliber bullet. And that whole gun was designed to murder Somalis because they get high on cot. And during the initial invasion of Somalia, we went in on the day of they call it the day of the Ranger, right? Yeah, in 93, we realized that a 5.56 first off isn't designed to kill people. I need everyone to understand that. The round is lethal, yes, but it's designed to take Dave down. So Dave goes down screaming and crying, and now Jared the medic has to attend to Dave. And Jared the medic, while he's doing the IV bag and doing the morphine drops, now I also need Chris, his battle buddy, to fucking help get Dave off the field. So with one round, I get 3 combatants removed. If I just shoot Dave with a fucking heavy cal round like a 308 or a 7.62 out of an AK, I just kill Dave and no one gives a shit. That's one less soldier, right? But if you're looking at how everything functions, like I said, the 458 was designed to burn holes through human beings who are high as fucking. The 5.56 won't take you down.
Yeah, I agree.
I keep going. I'm sorry. I can keep going, but I mean,
that's okay. I agree. Nobody cares if you kill Dave.
I care if you kill Dave.
We need Dave to write things.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot that goes into it too, right? You're not just looking at like your military campaign. It really depends on what you want to run, because you have your supply support. Depending on what kind of unit you are, you've got intelligence. You're always going to have intelligence. So you've got the intel weenies running around, right? And there's a variety of MOSs, or the Navy for NECs that cover what they do. You've got TERPs, which is translators. You got signals analysts. There's a wide range of shit to understand that goes down on a team element.
Well, most players are going to want to play the actual attack force, right? Or the special team.
They're going to play the fucking SEAL Team 2.
So go ahead, Dustin.
I'm just wondering, Scott, what is Weird Wars?
Weird Wars Rome?
Well, yeah, outside of that, but like overall, what's some of the things that they get right?
Oh man, I think some of the lore is good. Honestly, I haven't really delved into anything outside of Weird Wars Rome. I just trying to think of what I've read about. I mean, the lore is pretty good. They really at least paid some attention to that. But yeah, I honestly can't give you a better answer without having really dug into it. Even Weird Wars 1, I just haven't really gotten into.
So let's do this then real quick. Yeah. If you were going to put together a one shot or a one sheet, one shot adventure that was military, what would your thought process be as far as pre-gens, how you would set up the adventure, maybe how as a GM you would run your NPCs?
Sure.
In a military campaign?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely I personally would do I think I would do pre-gens. It's a tough one, right? Because you always want people to grow, but I mean, I would do pre-gens because I think the template is more important for someone to understand what happens. And I think if you key in on the right hindrances and edges for the archetypes, right? So you got like a DMR, right? Designated marksman, right? That's the guy who's got your long range, not a sniper, but he's got like that scar heavy, that 308 that can punch out to fucking 800 yards, right? And he's just, he's dropping motherfuckers and punching through armor, right? So you got a DMR guy, and you got to think, what does that DMR guy need to do? What hindrances does he need? What edges does he need? And then I would go through like that and build my team. I would have a designated marksman, probably a scout sniper, just someone who can operate on a solo terrain and kind of push out and away a little bit, provide overwatch. I would do a medic, a basic weapons sergeant, right? So it's the dude who's just going to have your AR, and he's going to have a grenade launcher. He's going to have that cool loadout, and like a saw gunner. Right, so you're going to have that heavy suppression fire capability that you're going to need in case all hell breaks loose, right, or a wide variety of uses. And then, I would go do that, and then I would start out, and this is how I've done this before, right? So I've run some like Task Force Raven stuff for a few people already, and I would start out with the small baby steps of kind of like, here we are in the like the jock, right, or the SOC, right, the operating center. And here's our in brief, and let's work down. Here's our HVT, and here's a map of the area, and here are your rules of engagement, because those are important. And it's kind of go that way and start building it and really get the atmosphere rolling into them, right? And then walk through baby steps of a mission. Like, okay, cool, we got to get to our operating area. All right, well, how are we going to do that? Are we coming in on a bird, or we're jumping in? Are we coming in on a helo and we're going to fast rope in? Are we coming in like SWGM, right? So they're a combat crewman in the Navy, and they deliver the SEALs and pick the SEAls up, right? They got to haul ass at, fucking a bazillion knots across the water in their cool ass boats with their miniguns and grenade launchers at the ready and shit to drop you off and pick you up. It all depends on that. And when you talk about how the insertion, because the insertion will be determined by the GM, not by the players. And then I would let the players begin discussing, okay, we have a map, we have an objective, we have our rules of engagement, we know what we're doing, we know how we're getting in. So let's start talking about that and let them start getting in the mindset and ask you questions and sort of go down that rabbit hole with them. Not like in a weird tangential way, but just getting them used to the thought pattern. And then just really, you have to remind them, like, hey, cool, you're going through a village at night. You got your night optics on, and there's a dude out taking a piss. All right, open fire. Well, hold on. Your fucking ROE is quite clear, right? Your whole point is to be stealthy and not leave no trace and all that nonsense. No, you're not hiding the body. You're not chopping it up. You're not feeding it to fucking pigs, right? So it kind of depends on what you want to do with that. But that's how you gotta understand how the military works. But that's, again, if you have military experience.
So how would you run the NPCs in it, though?
So I wouldn't put NPCs in a special operations element.
I'm talking about the enemy NPCs.
Oh, the enemy NPCs?
Yeah. Would you run them smart military or just...
Oh, man. It depends on who you're fighting, right? Because you'll have clever folks in every op 4. And that much is true, but in general, your average dude out there fighting the jihad they're either doing it because they got nothing else to do, they're doing it because they're really fucking bored, they're doing it because they're true believers, which are your really dangerous folks, right? But I would try to identify, like, hey, and maybe use the action deck, right? You can play like, here's 4 different groups of, like, we'll just say jihadis or terrorists. And this group has this motivation, which is money, right, for their family. This group has a motivation of true jihad, to die in battle is glory, because you get free passage for you and for your family into, I almost said Valhalla, to the paradise. And do that, and then run them accordingly at that group, and maybe make little marks like, hey, this guy's a club, this guy's a diamond, and so they're going to behave differently in combat, because the diamond dude maybe the one who ducks and runs and, does the classic, AK over his head and is just fucking spraying. He's got his life vest on and shit like that. Because depending on the op area you're in, and then the club guy might be, hey, no bullshit, I am going to murder the infidel because they're here and we got to keep pushing forward. That's how I would let you guide that. And then make the top villain wildcards always act like pussies and run away, because I don't know if you ever noticed that, but Al-Qaeda leadership isn't really strong on standing and fighting like they tell their troops to do.
The irony of it is that's how you actually get up in the ranks. You survive long enough by courageously fleeing.
Well, it's a pyramid scam, I mean, honestly. But
Yeah.
So my question would be, going back to command structure and 6 people sitting around a table. I mean, I tried to do just like a one shot of like I think it was Weird Wars 2, and it just, to me, it's not something I would be comfortable running, because it's, again, how do you have that one person who wants to be in charge, and so they're going to take over the table, and then they're going to expect everybody to do exactly what they say, and then you're going to have that one player who's like, yeah, I'm not really here for this guy to tell me what to do. I know that sounds bad, but I've seen it happen, and so that, I think, can be a problem with this type of game. You've got to have, and we say this all the time, you got to have the right table, and I think the right people in that mind frame who want to do that and who are okay with that chain of command and that structure, and then not try to play that leadership position as a hammer, and give other people a chance to play, enjoy, do their thing. And I don't know, how the best way to have that happen, other than just having a table that's saying, okay, we're okay with this.
Well, what if you make them all equals? As far as rank goes, there isn't, among the player characters, nobody's in charge, quote unquote.
That's not how it really works.
Yeah, see, and that's my thing. That's not really how things work.
Yeah.
Even the communists wouldn't do that.
I mean, yeah, granted that's obviously a way to get around it, but then you're going to have those people, you know, like Scott. I mean, I have no military knowledge, but they're going to be like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. So there is one way you could do it, Chris, that would be interesting for the World War II campaign or like a Vietnam campaign, maybe. And if you had taken them and have them create their characters, but don't, like Jared said, give no one rank, make them all like privates or PFCs, right? In the Army or Marines, whatever, Lance Corporal, whatever you want to do. And then have their allied extras as their captain, their first lieutenant, and their NCOIC go into first combat and murder the fuck out of all those allied extras and be like, congratulations, you 5 fucking Lance Corporals. Now you got to get the fuck out of here.
That's a good idea. That's really a cool thought.
Yeah, and then that could work with having everyone's equal rank. And then you'll see true personalities come out and see if they can actually play their hindrances up and shit. Yeah, so that might be a way of doing it.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I like that.
So where do you, and I feel like this is something that I think whenever this subject is broached, because a minute ago, Scott, you said that the military really does have its own culture and it's really its own understanding.
Absolutely.
So I kind of get the feeling that a lot of people, when they say they want to play a modern military campaign, they want to play a cinematic campaign that's based off of like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood movies, but not an actual military campaign.
Yeah, I mean, that's doable. Well, whatever. I mean, it's your table. Whatever you guys are comfortable with. It just, like I said, depends. I mean, everyone knows how I feel about Ghost Ops. It's hot fucking garbage because it was written by people who had zero business writing a fucking book like that. But does it work?
What were the mistakes? But let's talk about that. What were the mistakes made?
I made a 45-minute video about that. So they got weapons wrong, right? They looked at an international team, but they didn't even. There's no understanding of an AR like the M4 or the Mark 14 EBR or the Scar Heavy. Right now, those have gotten out there, but if you're depending on the time frame you're looking at, Canada and Britain don't use our fucking guns, right? Russia has a whole different dynamic weapon system they use because every country wants to produce its own armaments and use their own shit because that's money. And then they want to export those somewhat to smaller nations. And so they kind of fucked everything up with that. And then they don't understand firearm dynamics. So I will say this. If you're a gamer and you have never experienced a firearm, go to a fucking range. Don't be afraid. Find someone who shoots and have them take you and just put a few rounds down range. You really need to understand what a gun feels like in your hands. And if you can fire different calibers, do that. Fire a long gun because it's firing a long gun, right? You're punching out. That's different than bringing a pistol from the ready and punching out, right?
Yeah, and I've done that.
Good.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's different. The smell, right? When you have that powder in the air and you feel the blowback, and like my wife, I got a video of her when she fired my Scar. So my Scar is a 308, right? And the way it's designed, normally you have a little tiny bolt carrier in an AR-15 that goes in, loads the round, kicks back through the fucking gas return, right? So the Scar has this massive metal block because the round is so fucking massive. A 308 round is a large round, right? Not a gigantic round, but it's a massive round. So to alleviate the recoil on a Scar, they moves this massive brick back, right, to load the round back in. But part of the Scar's characteristics is it's loud as fuck, and every time she pulled the trigger and it goes off, the pressure wave from the Scar goes out and it clears her sinuses, and she giggles and holds her nose and shit. And if you're standing behind her, you can feel the wave blow back from you from the Scar's energy. Right. So it's just every gun has a nuance to it. I got an old Henry 45 long Colt lever action cowboy gun. Right. And a 45 Colt's a pretty significant round. But when you fire the weapon, it's like shooting a 22 in recoil. There's nothing there. It's just pow. You can just fucking click all day long and have a good time blinking with it or hunting with it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It kind of gets over. You can make it overly complicated or you can make it roughly simple in your games. But I do ask everyone to go fire a gun. And if you're anti-gun, you probably shouldn't be playing military campaigns. So I'm going to be honest with you.
So what do you think about using skill specialization? No? overcomplicates it unnecessary.
Yeah, that's just stupid. It's a waste of time. It really is.
I agree on principle.
Yeah.
I would honestly say that the more PowerPoints would go into it, because you actually have to go through prolonged training. Like you have to go. I haven't served, but I know you have to go through boot, and then you have to go through AIT. So you are specialized, but then you have to go off this basis of general. So you have to have this wealth of knowledge.
Right. Well, it's just part of character background, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just kind of a foregone conclusion that you're trained in weapons.
Yeah, and then every unit, right? Different special forces units have different things. Like if you hear someone called a Delta Private, right? So Delta is Delta Force in the Army, but a Delta Private's not an E1. That's an E6, because a Delta Private is a cute way of saying you're the fucking new guy, but you get to be a staff sergeant, right? To do this, because there's a long line of succession you have to get through in order to qualify for that unit. So even thinking about that, right? You look at what goes into making a Ranger, Green Beret, Delta Force operator. That's not a novice character, right? By any mark of it, by any stretch, right? So, yeah, it just depends on what kind you're running.
So Art Fernandez has a question. What about fighting against another well-trained outfit like Russians? Would not that change how you handle the NPCs?
No, absolutely. You're looking at a actual real military unit who has the same manpower, training, and equip protocols and etiquette that we do. They have very similar functions. You also have to understand cultural nuances of some of the military. If you're going to do something like that, right? So I happen to have very good knowledge of Russian military structures and whatnot. I understand how the warrant officers in the Russian military will beat the fuck out of their kids. There's lots of videos on the internet. You can still find them of dudes just doing leaping jump kicks and smashing a fucking private's chest in with his foot to teach him a lesson about fucking up. Right. So it's all kinds of crazy shit like that. So you have to understand there's cultural differences and shit. A lot of the soldiers are drunk. It's not slanderous. It's just simple fact. Those kids are, the conscripts specifically have a really hard time with being in the military, and they don't last too long. But yeah, then you start looking at Russian special forces. Spetsnaz isn't a joke. They're up there, and they are going to do their best to hunt down your special forces element. And they have just as much cool shit as we do, you know. And even some of the fighting techniques are even different.
Now, do you think that puts it into an environment where whenever you're having the characters face off against special forces or other operators of that caliber, that those characters should automatically be wildcard enemies? Or is this still a place where there's room for there to be a few mooks?
First, if you're doing Spetsnaz, oof, man,
I mean, Spetsnaz, but any elite force that you want the player to off against.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because you put like 6 wild cards, right? Hunting other wild cards. Just mechanically, right? I mean, on principle, yeah, but mechanically, that's just terrifyingly rough. But I mean, why not? Yeah, you could have some support staff with them. Maybe they're just there for fucking cannon fodder. Yeah, there's a couple of ways I think you could do it. You could just have them be there like strap hangers. So someone who's not an operator. And then, yeah, you could probably put some support staff in the ground and like an intel weenie support who's a terp or who's doing signal gathering, shit like that. There might be ways of doing that. Yeah, it's a good question there. Fuck, yeah, I don't know, man. That's a lot. Those combats would be forever in Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, I mean, that would be the concern, wouldn't it? Is that the idea is the combat's going to do one of two things. One, you're going to burn through bennies on rerolls for damage, and you're going to have people having combats that last less than a round because of just the sheer capacity to do damage in the game.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have the combat go the other direction, where every combat encounter is a 2-hour, tactical moving minis on a table as people seek cover between binary and things of that nature.
Yeah.
The where it weighs out really ends up being one of those questions where it's like, how do you want your game to go? Do you want that fast, gritty, or do you want that defensive turtle? Because that's going to be ruled in the way the players expend their bennies as well.
Yeah. No, true. Very true. Very true. And like bullets do weird shit to people. I think we talked about this before, but if you watch the movie Act of Valor, so those were real SEALs, right, who were in the movie as they're playing themselves. But near the end, there was a point where people were like, oh, it's just not realistic, where the SEAL takes numerous rounds from an AK, right, at damn near point blank range, and he still returns fire. He murders the fuck out of people. And then, but what happened in real life is that's all true. But then he also exfilled himself when the medics came for him. So that's all real shit. So people have to understand that the whole 3 wounds, you know, you're not crawling across the floor limping. I mean, it's weird, but things can happen in combat and you don't realize what goes on. People can be shot multiple times with heavy caliber weapons and still clear a room by themselves and then get themselves out and still live. Yeah, I don't know.
What about vehicles?
Yeah, sure. Those can be definitely at play. You got motorcycles, ATVs, Toyota trucks, Range Rovers. I mean, anything you want to throw at it, right? Up to like Bradleys, and if you want to bring in Humvees, and you want to bring in like the serious military shit, or you want to have your cool guys out there riding around in a couple of quad sports, drilling around. Same thing for your adversaries. Like if you see the little pickup truck that has the machine gun mounted at the back of it, that's a technical, right? And so the smallies love those things, and they just drive around. They even put fucking 4 quad barrel anti-aircraft guns that only go about neck and head level. They don't really adjust for anti-aircraft, so it kind of gives you an idea of what they're used for, right? So that's serious firepower on the back of a fucking fast-moving vehicle that can go almost anywhere and just open fire on a crowd of people. So yeah, you can bring vehicles into it. Chases happen.
So I mean, what are your opinions on the new suppressive fire rules? Have you had a chance to take a look at that?
No, not really. Sorry, I feel bad. What are they? Anyone know them by heart?
It essentially makes you distracted, makes the enemy distracted on a successful shooting roll.
Yeah, sure, that's fair. You know, I mean, if your intention is to just keep them down and keep their head down, right? Because that's what you want. You want them to not be able to put bullets down range at you. So I think that's fair enough mechanically. It's so quiet.
Right.
It's like so quiet.
I'm just listening.
All right. So if you were to bring vehicles in, obviously you're going to have to deal with terrain. Would you add any modifiers or any tweaks based off of what you have to do to get around or
yeah, sure, man. Especially if you're hauling ass and you're trying to navigate, you're driving, you got a guy yelling and navigating, probably on the radio, right? Your driver is probably on the radio himself while someone else is fucking navigating, right? Then you got a dude who's probably trying to open fire. Another guy who's probably trying to open fire. I mean, one of your coolest chases would be going after a HVT and a land vehicle versus a little bird coming in at him, right? Where the little bird is a tiny ass Bell helicopter, and you drop a couple of operators off the fucking sideboards, and you just you have that cool ass chase, and find out how that ends up. But yeah, you just got to think about when you drive your car and you're down the highway and you hit that pothole and you're doing 75 miles an hour. What the fuck happens, right? Now, extrapolate that out to I'm in the fuck stain of Afghanistan, right? And just the terrain is horrific. It's rocky. It is what it is. It has been literally a war zone for fucking ever, right? So, yeah, just think about that. That's all.
So let's twist this for a second
Sure.
and talk about doing something cinematic because we brought that up earlier. What is a good? Can you think of a good movie? Something somebody could use as sort of a template for setting up an adventure and running it? Is it something that's a modern military, like maybe a Mission Impossible movie, or a particular scene that jumps out as something that would cross over well?
Yeah, sure. Like, if you were to no shit take Act of Valor, that's a really cool story because it involves special operators and CIA assets global hopping to track down terrorists who are essential plan is is to infiltrate America and fuck people up. Sicario is another good one, right? That's a brilliant campaign if you wanted to fight the cartels and you wanted to try something different, right? Because that brings a whole different aspect into it. Actually, Active Valor, Sicario. Oh man, what else would be really fun?
What about? I'll throw this out. I don't know if it's any good or not, but how about Black Hawk Down?
Yeah, Black Hawk Down is, dude, read the book. I mean, it's not a very long book, and he goes into a lot more detail about where shit went wrong. But yeah, that's brilliant. I was thinking, Black Hawk Down or like Lone Survivor, right? When the team gets into a bad spot, and now you have to exfil, and you are vastly outnumbered, right? What happens then? How do you proceed to fight your way out? And if you're using gritty damage, and then sometimes, I mean, maybe not a military campaign is the right thing for folks to want to run. I mean, it is what it is. Run it. But it might be if you wanted to. This is so fucking hippy dippy. But Powered by the Apocalypse time. If you wanted to use Savage Worlds and you wanted to explore the theme of a military moment like Lone Survivor, where there's serious loss, right, and you're losing your brothers left and right, and you don't know what to do next because you got to keep your shit together. You're running out of ammo because the ammo count is strict. Gritty damage is in effect. You're limping your ass across the battlefield. You're rugged terrain. You don't speak a language of where you are. That might be an interesting kind of like a micro campaign, if you will, like maybe 4 sessions of let's talk about how you get into the situation. The situation goes tits up, and now you have to exfil, and we're just starting to whittle down people.
I got it. Red Dawn, right? You run Red Dawn.
Yeah, I would run Red Dawn in a heartbeat, bro. I grew up on that shit. When I was learning Russian, I let everyone know. I was like, Red Dawn was like a training film for me, so you're all fucked.
You're talking the original, right? Not the remake?
Yeah, the original.
There was no remake.
Yeah.
Wolverines.
Yeah. I never saw the remake. I refused.
There was no remake of Red Dawn 2, and there's no Highlander 2 either.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a good topic. It's just I could go on for. I mean, I've been in active duty military for 23 years straight. So, I grew up around these stories with my grandfather and shit. He drove the small boats in Korea and dropped off the original UDT dudes when they were doing their shit early on in the war before SEALs were even a fucking thing. And so I grew up on all that shit. It was just like, and my uncle was a Ranger in Vietnam, and his brother was a Green Beret in Vietnam. And they had more fucked up stories because they were live and in the action. But yeah, I mean, talk to veterans if you know them. Yeah.
You could always do like an Operation Paperclip kind of campaign or mini campaign too.
That would be baller, yes. Yeah, man, because you could put a fucking like an OSA operator in there, right? So you're prequel to the CIA, and who's going to go and pull all the Nazis and shit, and now you're in there protecting it. There's a lot of fun ways of doing it. Like, what was the movie where they had to do the Monument Men, where they had to get the paintings?
Yes.
Yeah, so that could be a fun campaign, right?
Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah. And if you really wanted to have a good time with that, like Monument Men or like Operation Paperclip, I don't know if I would run that shit as like extras. I might put almost like oh man, brain fart. The mass battle tokens. Mm-hmm. And so every time shit goes tits up, you remove a token representing a piece of valuable art or a scientist, right? Yeah. And just kind of game out and how much can you come back with? I mean, it sounds a little video gamey, but that might be an interesting way of doing it. It might change the way your players think about their tactical environment and tactical engagement because they know that shit's valuable.
Well, right. The thing that I'd like about an Operation Paperclip game is nobody's going to want to help the Nazis. We really hate the Nazis. The problem is the Russians will get the Nazis and use their science to build weapons. So you're like, tough choices you have to make.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, and if you're down to do a little bit of conversion to Suede, I think you can really pick up Weird Wars 2. Yeah. That's kind of middle of the road. It's still World War II era. Yeah. You can kind of pick that up and use that as a structure and a thing to look at, and just take out the supernatural elements of it, like you would if you're going to run a standard Western using Deadlands without all the supernatural elements. Yeah, the rules are already kind of there. You kind of already have a template on how to do it.
Yeah, like World War II and World War I are kind of easier to fake, right? Because
Right. Nobody knows.
Yeah, you're not gonna have any World War II veterans at your fucking table. You might have somebody who grew up on stories of their grandfather or their grandmother and stuff, and that's cool. But yeah, Vietnam, Korea, even it's like so far in the distance now. Really, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like I said, I ran. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, Dave looked like he had a question before. Yeah. You cut him off.
Well, what I was going to ask is, what embellishments do you feel would need to be added to take it from too verisimilitude focused into something that's going to be more cinematic and fun if we're doing that cinematic version? Like, are there certain things that you think people would add that they don't need to, or that you would definitely add to capture that more cinematic military feel?
I would think Savage Rules as written is probably more cinematic focused, right, for combat. And so that might be your best effort, is resist the temptation of gritty damage if you're going to go cinematic.
Yeah.
Right. And then, yeah, I think that might be the only one. If you really just wanted to go cinematic, I would avoid gritty damage altogether.
Well, you could also, I mean, just from a character creation standpoint, right? If you're not offering pre-gens, you're running a mini campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Basically start everybody out as seasoned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mid-season rank, and tell them, hey, you automatically have fighting at a D6, shooting at a D6, the basic for military training, just so they're free.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what I do with Task Force Raven. I made them out as, I don't even know what rank they are because I don't give a shit, right? I mean, they're supposed to be operators, so I kind of know where they should lie. And that could be the campaign is like, okay, cool, now you get to advance, right? So what's important to your character now? Now I've given you this template of this raw sniper, but what do you want to do with this dude? So that's a cool idea.
Yeah, you could even do like an A-team's kind of like an A-team ripoff, right? They're, an ex-forces team and blackballed.
Yeah, sure.
Trying to clear their names.
Yeah, it'd be such a fun game. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I ran... It's not modern military, but it's still heavy military focus. I ran Weird Wars Rome for, I think 6 months. And they did really well with it. And they were all non-military players, but they took right to their roles. And like they were eager to explore, like, hey, cool story. We're Roman fucking soldiers and everyone has a rank. And we've got this snotty little shit riding a horse. He's only here because his father's a senator, right? Meanwhile, I'm the goddamn centurion, and I've been in this unit for 10 years. I've done my dime, right? And so that was kind of cool. So if you have the people who can buy in, but I don't know if Weird Wars Rome was easier to buy in because it's fantasy, but I don't think that really matters. I don't think the genre or the time period matters too much. I think Chris is right. Folks either get it and want to do it, or they're not going to want to do it, and you're going to know almost immediately that it's just not something they really want to do.
Right. Well, it's like anything we talk about on the podcast, right? Take the temperature at your table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you're playing something that players want to actually explore and play.
Yep.
And then you automatically have buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the murder hobo thing, right? That was a question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you have to remind people that you're not there to kill every fucking human being in a village. That's contrary to popular opinion. We're not there to make everyone fucking hate us. Now, you may wake up and, granddad is now missing because this motherfucker only has 6 fingers because he makes fucking bombs, and someone come and took him in the middle of the night and borrowed him, right? But that's different than your people want to be like, we're just going to, I'm going to call fucking, I'm going to Roger up and call Danger Close from an AC-130, and we're just going to pound the living fuck out of, Babuka-Fuckistan, the village, and make it into a mud hole, right? That's not going to work. We do have what we call, that's where I start drawing lines. You got to assess the situation, right? If you've got motherfuckers hiding in a mosque, for instance, right? I go back to counterterrorism because it's the easiest one. If you got them hiding in a mosque or a hospital, even if it's a former hospital, we're not doing anything. You have to understand that. That's fucking,
it's off limits.
It's a very difficult conversation to have.
It is.
You got to understand the rules of engagement are in place for a wide variety of reasons, and it's not because you or your general gives a fuck. It's because the ambassador in that country or representing that country gives a fuck, and his boss, the Secretary of State, gives a fuck because that boss has to answer to the President of the United States, and the President has to answer to all the fucking 333 million fucking retards who are going to whine and piss and moan on Twitter right? And then around the world, you got 7 billion dipshits, and everyone has a fucking opinion. And so you got to look at the long tail effect of when you just like, fuck them, level that mosque, right? Yeah.
And there's the soundbite, folks.
Yeah, please don't do that. One of your viewers already thinks the fucking Arabic word kafir is somehow a fucking alt-right symbol. I don't know if they still watch, but they're retarded if they are.
That is literally apostate.
Yeah, I'm a non-believer. I believe in the old gods of my people. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim, and I'm not a Jew. So it's equally offensive to all three Abrahamic religions, and I don't give a shit.
Any character tropes like it should be in the military adventure, like the Grizzled. Like
yeah.
The Grizzled guy who's seen it all.
Yeah. You're gonna have that, right? When you watch the movies, you're gonna have the super serious professional, right? Like you may be in the fucking chew or whatever, and you're all hanging out and bullshitting, and it's listening to fucking 90s gangster rap, and you'll have the dudes like, hey, can you guys come in and turn that? Can you turn it down? It's awfully fucking disrespectful. Like that's no bullshit. That happens. And when it happens, you're like, oh, we'll never win a war again. Like, if you can't handle fucking jaw rule, I'm not sure how you're going to handle fucking firefights. But so, you have that. You have those people. You have
the buy the book and regulations guy.
Let's not skip shit.
Smart ass.
You got the smart asses, right? You're going to have, I did a briefing after an op one time. It was the first and last briefing I was ever asked to complete because it was in PowerPoint. It had full animation. It had intro music and outro music, and it was not well received. I was an E5 at the time, and man, the CO was a 05, and he was not enjoying my fucking levity with the situation at all of explaining, a full fucking mission. So you're gonna have that dude, right? I used to sign shit, Eminem, basically, of what I did. It was just like I can't help myself. Somehow I survived. Be really good at what you do. But yeah, you got all those really cool archetypes. Will be fun, right? Have those. Definitely have those, and pin those around the hindrances. Right. That's the important piece. Is really nail those hindrances.
So, like the Grizzled guy is stubborn and mean.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Look at Private Ryan, the sniper, ultra religious. You might find this difficult to believe, but there are some very, very religious people in the military. In certain elements of the military, certain specialties see a lot more religious people. Like Mormons are, I would say, way overrepresented in intelligence, right? They all go to college mostly. They're smart. They're from great families. The background check and the polygraph, if required for their job, is simple for them to pass because they're fucking sweet like saccharin, right? So those are the people you want. Those are the Boy Scouts. They're Eagle Scouts. They're the ones you want in the fight because they're going to do all the right things for America. So you're going to have those people. And man. Yeah, use all the tropes.
And it's okay to have some inter-party conflict, right?
Fuck yeah, you have to, right? You don't always get along. You can't. Look at if you want to see how that's even evident, look at the trial that went on with the Navy SEALs recently. And that Navy SEAL chief, right? The big, oh shit, is he didn't get along with the Millennial SEALs. And he talked a lot of shit about them. And you can go back and read some of what he said and be like, oh, well, here's a dude who's been there, done that. And now he's got these fucking dudes coming up who are the new generation. And he has a lot of hard times with them. Right. So explore those themes as well. Have a good time. Just have a good time with it. Ultimately, you have to understand that you're going to have a rank structure, right? Loosely, you might have what we call positional authority, right? So E5 might be in charge of the op, like I said. And you might have conflict. You might disagree. Ultimately, shit has to get done, though. And someone of significant rank at some point will step in and say, everyone shut the fuck up, listen, and get shit done. And that is a real thing that happens. And it's not often, but it does have to happen sometimes.
So there's a comment from Art that does some posted here, and we'll handle that here real quick.
Oh, okay.
How would you use the rule of combat that no plan survives contact with the enemy?
It's not
really more of an aphorism than a rule of combat, but I get the meaning.
It's not totally true, but there are things you can't account for, and there are things you think you account for that just aren't true. Your intelligence can and will be flawed. That's just how it is some days. the people you're looking for aren't going to be there. Right? And that's some of the fun times of now what? Right? You gather clues. Is that your mission? Are you authorized to go in? You know, what's your Overwatch doing? Yeah, I mean, you have a really good time with like, yeah, shit goes sideways. Not often, but shit goes sideways. I read some stories about like the Battle of Fallujah when the Marines went in. That's pretty harrowing shit. And you can see how just all hell can tend to break loose, and you start doing crazy things like shooting tow guns at human beings. If you don't know what a tow gun is, you should look it up, and then you'd be like, oh, it's designed to destroy big shit, not people. But you know what? When those people have, you know, PKMs or RPGs, you're going to go ahead and just do what you got to do.
All right. Well, is there anything else in the? Is there anything else? I mean, we're at 8:00. We're ish. We're
I know, right? Is it a dead horse? I'm sorry. I talked a lot. My bad.
A lot of TLAs in this episode. 3-letter acronyms. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, just stop me and ask me to, explain something, because it's. I mean, at least I'm not bullshitting, because you see, my mind is constantly on a thought train where I'm like, I don't know. This is just second nature to me. I've done this for I've done this forever. I feel old. I've had multiple surgeries because of it. My body is giving out rapidly. I don't hear so well out of one ear from a VBIED in Afghanistan and Kandahar early on in the war. Knees all fucked. My one knee is fucked up. I'm missing medial meniscus because of a fast rope incident, and because I'm bullheaded like almost everyone who does crazy shit. I didn't get it checked out for about 2.5 years, and so when they did the MRI finally, because the pain is really, if you've never had your meniscus torn, the pain is this intense, sharp stabbing pain. And when they did the MRI, the doc pulled me in, and he was a battalion doc, and he was just like, "Senior, I want to show you something." He's like, "You see all this jelly shit and this fluid? It shouldn't be like that, right? It should be nice and sweet looking." And so, yeah, they cut that out. I mean, yeah, it takes its toll on you too. Remember that when you're looking at hindrances, remember that your older dudes, your more senior NCOs or senior officers, they've seen some shit, and give them some hindrances that affect that, right? Because that will help out.
Or maybe they just have a permanent level of fatigue if they're battle hardened, right?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Right? That'd be cool. And then I don't know how to advise people on the issue of PTSD, because it's not what people think it is. That might not be a comfortable point at the table for some people, because PTSD is not all combat related. So we're talking about military, be specific for PTSD, and everyone is susceptible to it, right? It doesn't make you I'll just say it doesn't make you a pussy, because you've seen terrible shit, right? Man, in war you see things that humans really weren't meant to see. It's just kind of how it is. I mean, yeah, Dustin's an expert, so yeah. It's just kind of how it happens. You see and do terrible things, right? In the higher moral purpose of life to other human beings.
There's no natural equivalent to dynamite.
No, yeah, I mean, I used to brief young sailors who were like really hopeful and like, hey, who wants to do cool shit? Who wants to jump out of airplanes with fucking guns and collection gear and do stupid shit? And all these hands go up. And then after about an hour of conversation with them about what really goes on, I ask it again. It's just like, so it's like, yeah, I can tell you what it feels like when an explosion goes off and Mother Nature decides that you're just she picks you up and she moves you wherever she needs you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it feels like that. It's hard. It's like invisible hands are just crushing you. It's just all around you, regardless of the direction of the blast. It's the weirdest shit ever.
Well, if you let's say you wanted to create the hardened, the grizzled sergeant who does have PTSD. Sorry. And then what did I say? It's been a long day. PTSD.
Yeah, respect, bitch.
You did say that he's, on a failed fear check, he's distracted.
Sure, right? Yeah. It's a thing, right? Oh, like Private Ryan, right? He got the shakes really bad, especially near the end, because that shit was taking its toll on him.
Right.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
I think you could actually, like, in a firefight, you could actually do sanity checks. You have a lot of information coming in, and it overloads.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you could couple some of that shit to like gritty damage, right? Mm-hmm. You take that round. Oh, okay. Are you going to stay in the fight? I don't know. It depends on what kind of game you're running, right? You get that first round through, and you might be like, It's not what I signed up for. I'm so sorry. Everybody wants tuition assistance until you got to earn that shit.
All right. Well, if we have nothing left in the chat, nothing else from the viewers, then we'll go ahead and close this down. So until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Chris, Dave, Dustin, and Scott saying keep rolling, stay savage.